everyone. Chris Wooden here. Glad to be back with you for this week's part 3, talking about the Texas Red Dirt Revolution that occurred in the late 90s and early 2000s that I was so fortunate to be a part of there in the Austin scene. So we're going to go ahead and get started, and let's dive right in. So in 2002 with Kevin, we'd been touring his record, kind of his first straight-ahead country album between the time that he was in Dangerous Toys, the hair metal band, and the time he started his solo project. He actually had a southern rock band there in the late 90s called Thunderfoot that was really awesome. So in 2000, he actually did his first straight-ahead country album, and it was called Beer Bait and Ammo. That song actually got a lot of miles out of it. It was also recorded later on by Mark Chestnut as well as the Possum, Mr. George Jones. In 2002, we decided it was time to put out a new album. Willie was kind enough to come in and actually do a duet with us on that album, a little song called All the Tequila in Tijuana. That was really awesome. So to the best of my recollection, we got that album done. We released it at the beginning of August of 2002. And there was just so much happening around that time. We had just released our Live at Billy Bob's album through Smith Music Group out of Nashville that was run by Rick Smith. Rick also brokered a deal with Dodge Corporate so that we got to participate in some national ad campaigns for Dodge, offered us some tour support moving forward. It was really great. We'd come into town. We would have the local Dodge dealership. They would bring out some publicity stuff. They would help with the advertising and be our guests there at the show, some folks from the dealership. That whole winter was kind of a whirlwind because we had so much on our plates touring that new album. We were trying to break open new markets all the time. We were trying to get on more and more radio stations, as was everyone else. After the first of the year, there was quite a bit of talk because as I'd said before in a previous video, one of the major distribution outlets that the Texas artists had at that point in time was a company out of Houston called Southwest Wholesale. Nearly everyone in the Texas Red Dirt scene at that point were using Southwest Wholesale to distribute their products. And they also had quite a few rappers from the scene there in Houston as well that they distributed product for. Well, right around New Year's of 2003, there was a lot of talk going on because at that point, we had actually, Kevin had actually funded that album essentially on credit. To the best of my recollection, it was somewhere between $60,000 and $80,000 to record it, to release it, promote it, all the things that went into releasing that album and trying to get a little bit of traction. Best I recall, we did blipped briefly on the Billboard charts as far as an album charts, I believe somewhere in the mid-40s, if I'm not mistaken. It was only for a week or two that we were on there. The thing was, at that point, obviously we had bills to pay. We had a record to pay for. We had sold quite a bit of product through Southwest Wholesale, but we hadn't seen any checks from them. All we were getting were excuses. They kept putting us off and kept telling Kevin that they would get the money, and it just wasn't happening. Well, I'll never forget, on February 1st of 2003, which happened to be the day that the Space Shuttle Columbia exploded, which I saw that morning, just as a side note. I had woken up to use the restroom, and I stepped outside of the bus. As I recall, we were in Wichita Falls, Texas, and when I walked outside, just to kind of get my bearings and see where we were at, I had gone and gotten in my bunk before we even got to the hotel that night. So when I stepped off the bus, I actually looked up in the sky and saw the space shuttle re-entering and disintegrating, and I had no idea what I was seeing. I actually went back in the bus, went back to sleep, and around lunchtime, we had gone somewhere to eat lunch. I don't recall now where it was at. One of the guys came and got me and said, hey, we're all going to eat lunch together. Kevin has an announcement, and by the way, the space shuttle disintegrated re-entering this morning. That was pretty much a downer from the get-go. I got up, threw my clothes on, went in the restaurant and sat down, and that's when Kevin told us what was going on. This was on a Friday, as I recall. So we worked directly with a fellow named Frank Jackson there at Southwest Wholesale. He's a great guy. He took very good care of everyone. And Frank had made some phone calls that morning and reached out to all the different artists that he was personally responsible for, which included pretty much everyone in the Texas and Red Dirt scene. And he had reached out to everyone's management. So apparently the guys who owned Southwest Wholesale had been doing some illegal things with the money. We didn't know that at the time. The only thing we knew is Frank said apparently they had every intention of filing for bankruptcy. They had no intention of telling any of their employees there at Southwest what was going on. They had just planned for everybody to come into work Monday morning and there would be a padlock and a sign on the door saying that they were bankrupt. The thing is, everyone had quite a bit of product sitting in storage at their facility there in Houston. Somehow, and I'm not sure how this happened, Frank got word of what was about to transpire. So he immediately got on the phone and started calling everybody to let them know, look, this is happening. If you want to get your product out of the facility before Monday, I can meet you over there and get you in there so you can get all of your CDs and such out of the warehouse. Of course, everybody was on the road. It was a Friday. We were headed into the weekend like that. And we were very fortunate, though, that Pat Green actually leased a semi and sent it from Stephenville. Actually, his management did, Jimmy Perkins. And they sent a semi over from Stephenville to Houston, and they picked up everybody that they could, all of the CDs and all the merchandise that was sitting in storage there at Southwest Wholesale's facility. We were real fortunate. Kevin is very business-minded. He's a natural-born businessman. He worked very hard to put all the money possible back into the business and build a strong business. He wasn't, pocketing a lot of money or wasting money or anything like that. His plan was to build a strong business so that we could weather any storm. Unfortunately, at that point, when Southwest went under, they did so owing somewhere in the neighborhood of $140,000, as I recall. As I said, the majority of that needed to go to paying for the record and all the promotion and everything that was spent on that. So it really put us in quite a situation. Furthermore, we had actually recorded the old Queen song, Fat Bottom Girls. Fast forward a few weeks after that, I'll never forget, I've never seen anyone so happy to find out that they're being sued before in my life. We're getting ready to leave town. We all got on the bus at bus call, and Kevin came in waving some paperwork, so excited. He said, "You're not going to believe this. We're actually being sued by Queen." Obviously, we hadn't gotten paid on all of those units that Southwest Wholesale had actually sold, so we had not been able to pay the royalties for the songwriting and publishing on that song to Queen. I guess we had sold enough and made enough of a stir that Queen caught wind of it, and as I said, they filed a lawsuit against us. Of course, we had to go to court and file an injunction to stop that proceeding until something could be figured out with Southwest Wholesale. So back to these guys who own Southwest Wholesale. They kind of pulled an Enron thing, if you're familiar with that. So they had actually taken everybody's money and were illegally investing it. They had some friend that was involved, as I recall, with some of the big, like Fannie Mae and all those investment companies. So they were illegally investing that money, and they just decided to declare bankruptcy and pocket the money and pocket what they made off the investments off of that, and essentially just thumbed their nose at all of us and seemed to have the attitude that we were all a bunch of dumb musicians who couldn't or wouldn't do anything about it. Well, as you can imagine, they were wrong. A group of guys, including Corey Morrow, Pat Green, Kevin, and several others went together, hired a crack team of attorneys, and their investigators started digging into the matter, and that's when they found out that these guys had been illegally investing that money. So at that point, they went ahead and contacted the Federal Trade Commission and let them know what was going on. And of course, the feds, they initiated an investigation into these guys as well. And this took, as best I recall, I think it was 2007. So it was about 4 years to get it all cleared up. And those guys actually were tried and convicted of federal charges. And as best I recall, I believe last I heard of them, they were sitting in Leavenworth, in Leavenworth Penitentiary. So back to that time there at the beginning of 2003, about a month after Southwest Wholesale went under, we did South by Southwest, this big festival there in Austin, and it was really great. We actually won 6 of the Austin Chronicle Music Awards that year. Billy Bob Thornton and Willie presented our awards, and that was great. Of course, I was familiar with Willie and everybody, and I had also recently met Billy Bob. They were filming the Alamo movie there down the road from us, and I had some involvement with that, had been out on the set and met Billy. So it was really great, and that was a fun time that night. I'll never forget. After presenting the awards, actually before we went on stage to receive our awards, they had kind of a staging area on stage left outside with a little mini bar and snacks and everything, and a lot of people waiting around to go on to accept awards or present awards or whatever they were doing on the program that night. I remember there was a lady who, she was just kind of standing around like I was, nursing a drink, and kind of started talking to me. She was very, very friendly. We talked for a few minutes. One of the Austin Chronicle photographers walked by, and he said, "Y'all get together. I want to take a picture." So I put my arm around her, and we smiled and took a picture. And shortly thereafter, we got our stage call, and it was time for us to go up and accept the awards. And I told her bye, and she said, "Congratulations, good luck," and all that. So I went ahead and went up there and headed into the stage door. A few days later, they came out with the big South by Southwest and award show. They did a special edition from the award show for the Austin Chronicle. And I was thumbing through it, looking at pictures, and I saw that picture in there. And I look down, I look at the caption, and much to my surprise, when I see the caption, it read something to the effect of Kevin Fowler Band fiddler Chris Whitten poses with actress Farrah Fawcett. So I actually met and visited with Farrah Fawcett for a few minutes and had no idea who she was. I did not recognize her. Then after we had accepted the awards and gotten on the other side of the stage, it was really great. I floated back. There was a dressing room there, and I could see a lot of people in there. I couldn't really tell what was going on. So I kind of edged my way up to the door, and there were people crowded around the door. And just as I did, people kind of parted, and Willie walked out, and Billy Thornton was behind him. Behind him was Woody Harrelson. And they walked past and said hello, and bringing up the rear was Willie's road manager and my neighbor, Pootie Locke. Pootie looked at me and said, "BFE, walk with us." And BFE was his nickname for me, and I won't go into what that stood for. We went out and sat on the bus, so that was the first time I'd met Woody Harrelson. Had the opportunity to visit with him and Willie and Billy Thornton for about 30 minutes. We sat out on the bus, and I came back in, watched the rest of the awards show, standing there in the wings on the side of the stage. So we actually toured that record for quite a while. It wasn't long after that, as I talked about before, Kevin had started working with Tracy Bird's management, and between Tracy Bird and Mark Chestnut, and those guys had gotten him in touch with some major players in Nashville and hooked him up with some writing dates with some of these great hit songwriters there in Nashville. So we had all that going on, and they were wanting to try to broker a major label deal there in Nashville. So that actually carried on for quite a while, and we went for quite a while without having anything out on the radio, anything new. We were very fortunate. Our crowds continued to grow the whole time. And as I said before, we figured out there was kind of a formula to it. We would go to a new market, say, I remember going to Midland, Odessa. There was a place out there called The Ranch that we would play for a lady named Judy Ferris. So we got out there. I remember the first time we played, it wasn't a very big place. They would probably hold maybe 600 to 800 people. But our first show, I would imagine we had somewhere in the neighborhood of 60 to 80 people, something like that. But we continued to go back and hit that market and play that venue about every 6 months or so. So we'd hit it about twice a year. And after, maybe 3 times a year now that I think about it. But and each time we would go back, it seemed like our crowd would double. And about the third time we were there, I believe we probably had 200-300 people in the crowd. And then the next time we went back, it was packed. It was standing room only. It was just wall-to-wall people, complete sellout. And that seemed to be kind of how it would happen. Because anytime we went into a new market, it would take about 3 or 4 times, and it would build and build and build slowly but surely until finally, we would come back, and we would get to a point that we had a pretty decent crowd, like I said, around that third gig. And we would come back that fourth one, and it would just be absolutely packed. It was incredible, and it seemed like just the difference between the third gig and the fourth gig was insane. But you had to do that regularly. Another thing that we figured out along about that time, Dierks Bentley had come down and started doing a lot of shows with everyone in the Texas scene, and we all became real good friends with him. He was obviously doing good nationally, but guys like him were not drawing real well around that time in Texas because, all the venues and all the fans were really geared towards the Texas red dirt market. But we figured out, we going out and trying to open up these new markets, you were better off if you could we always called it the artist exchange program. We would go out and play a market that we were not strong in or had not played before with somebody who drew really well there. We'd go be the opener. And of course, we'd lose a massive amount of money on the show and basically make nothing on it. But if we were going to lose our shirt tail, at least we did it in front of a crowd. We made the mistake of not doing that a couple of times. And then Kevin finally said, we just need to plan on going out into a new market once a month. We'll do it with somebody who draws really well in that market. And then, and in return, there were markets that we drew really well in that some of these guys didn't draw well in. So they would come down and open for us so that they could help build their crowd and their fan base and open up new markets for them in the Texas scene. So that brings us up to about 2004. I'm going to go ahead and call this video done for the day. I think it's probably long enough. I've been going pretty long on these videos, so I want to kind of break it down a little bit and just do little eras and kind of gear it towards around the albums at the time we recorded them, released them, and what happened in that time period with those albums. I thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and share. I appreciate it so much. I love the comments. I love the feedback. I love hearing from everybody. Also, I do offer violin and fiddle lessons. If you'd be interested in that, I can do it remotely. And, of course, if you need any violin or fiddle or mandolin or anything like that recorded for an album, please get in touch with me. I'd love to work with you on it and see what we could accomplish together. Anyway, thank you so much. Have a wonderful day, a wonderful week, and keep on picking.